Hello and welcome back to part 5, routing. In the previous part, we did the STP configuration. Now we are going to do the routing using default static routes, default routes, and then OSPF. Let's router 2 represents the path to ISP1 MTN and router 3 ISP2 Vodafone. So this one is MTN. This is Vodafone. Yeah. Then configure the following IP addresses on router 1. Interface G000. Okay. So on router 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On router 1, you go to the system view. Interface G000. So you should assign 100.100.1/30. So IP address 100.100.100.1. Mask is 30. Then on G interface G001, you assign the first valid address in VLAN 8. Inside VLAN 8, where is VLAN 8? Engineering, the first valid address, this is where it starts. So the first valid address will be 161/27. Okay. So we do IP at 10.10.10.161/27. It's not slash, just space. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I wrote here for easy referencing. Then on switch 2, router 2, inside the system view, enter interface G000. Interface G00. You're supposed to, I think we didn't finish router 1, sorry. Interface 2, G002. You're supposed to assign IP address 50.50.50.1/30. Okay. Then in router 2, you assign one IP at 192.168.1.1/24. Same in router 2. Still on router 2, you do G002. So you go inside G002, do IP at 50.50.50.2/30. Okay. You're done with router 2, you enter router 3. Interface G000. You're supposed to assign it 100.100.100.2/30. Then you go into interface G001. And then you assign it an IP address of 192.168.1.2/24. Okay, so that's it for router 3. And then on switch 5, it says the VLAN F1. You should assign it this IP address. You realize we didn't create VLAN F1 by default. Every switch has a default VLAN if of 1, and all ports are inside VLAN F1 by default. So we don't need to create it. Otherwise, we would have done VLAN 1, and then there's no need for that. So you just do interface VLAN F1. Then you assign it an IP address of 192.168.1.254/24. Okay. Then at the head of it, configure a valid IP address of your choice from this block for PC1. Okay. So over here, and it says set the gateway to VLAN F1 of switch 5. So you configure, I'll choose 192.168.1.10. And the gateway, it says we should use the VLAN F1 of switch 5. So the gateway will be 192.168.1.254. So inside PC1, we change the IP address to 192.168.1.10. And the subnet mask will be 255.255.255 because it's /24. Now the gateway is 192.168.1.254. Then you apply and close. And then on switch 5, configure 2 default routes. On switch 5, configure 2 default routes to forward packet to the 2 ISP gateways. That's router 2 and router 3. The path through router 2 is preferred. Path 3 should serve as backup. So, sorry. It's over here on router 5, this router, switch 5, this switch. You're supposed to configure 2 default routes, which is IP route static. So because it's a default route, you use the any address, which is 0.0.0.0 with the subnet mask of 0. Don't forget that. So 40 separated by a dot and then space another 0. Then the next hop address is that of router 2, which is MTN. That's 192.168.1.1. Then you repeat the same thing, but then it's now the Vodafone next hop address. So that's .2. And it says this one should serve as backup. So we set a preference. Let's see, the default preference for static route is 60. So you set a something higher than that so that it will serve as a backup. So I'll set 80. Okay. So if you do display IP routing table, you should see a static route from the any network. It means any packet that is coming should be forwarded to the MTN router, which has this next hop address. Okay. Then at ISP1 MTN, you configure a route to the default to the branch office network through the branch edge router 1. So if we are here at the MTN side, we're supposed to configure a default route, a static route to this network. This network is 10.10.10.0/24. Then it should pass through router 1. So the next hop address we'll use is 50.50.50.1. You get it? So from here, if you receive any packet from here meant for this network, you forward it to this router through this interface. So on router 2, you do IP route static. The branch office address is 10.10.10.0/24. Then the next hop address is now 50.50.50.1. You configure a static route to the network branch through R1. So basically the same thing, but now on the Vodafone router. So you do IP route static meant for 10.10.10.0/24. Now the next hop address, if you are here, the next hop address should be 100. This one 100.100.100.1. So you do 100.100.100.1. Good. Now at the branch office, configure an OSPF process and add interface G001 on router 1 and all the VLAN interfaces to area 0. So we are supposed to, it says hint, consider only R1, S1 and S2 for this configuration. Excuse me. It means only router 1, S1 and S2 should partake in the OSPF. Okay. So what we do is we go to router 1. Inside the system view, you initialize an OSPF process 1 and area 0. Okay. You do the same thing for switch 1 and 2. System view OSPF 1 area 0. OSPF process 1, area 0. You don't type the process, you just do OSPF space 1, and then area 0. Now what we do is, it said we should add this interface G001 on router 1, and you realize that this interface belongs to this VLAN 8. Okay, so it means I'm supposed to add the VLAN 8 network to the OSPF process. OSPF is all about advertising networks that you have knowledge of. So we are supposed to, and then we are also supposed to add all the VLAN interfaces. Okay, so what basically it is telling us to advertise all these 6 VLAN networks. So we are supposed to advertise this, that, and that. Okay, so on let's start with router 1. Okay, yes, let's start with router 1. We inside the OSPF area 0, we do network. We are advertising the networks. So network, we start from the top, 10.10.10.0. Over here we don't use the subnet mask, we use the wildcard mask. So the wildcard mask is 0.0.0.127. Okay, then you do the same thing for the remaining networks. So you do the same, you repeat the same process, advertising all 6 networks on switch 1 and switch 2. We are done with that. And then on router 1, configure a static route to the head office network through MTN and Vodafone as backup. So on router 1, okay, that's our edge router. We are supposed to configure a static route to the head office network. So we go back to the system view. We do IP route static. The head office network is 192.168.1.0. Subnet mask of 24. Then MTN should be our preferred one. So the next hop should be 50.50.50.0. That's the interface here. Okay. Then you do the same thing, but then using the Vodafone interface. So it goes to here, 100.100.100.2. But then this is a backup, so you set a preference. Okay, set a preference of, let's say, 80. Okay, then configure a default route on both switch 1 and switch 2 to use R1 as their last resort. So inside the system view on switch 1, you do IP route static. Because it's a default route, you do 0.0.0.0. Subnet mask of 0. Then R1 interface is switch 1 and switch 2. So the R1 interface is 10.10.10.161. So 10.10.10.161. You do the same thing on switch 2. IP route static. Then 0.0.0.0.0 10.10.10.161. Yes, so that will be it for part 5. That'll be it for part 5. Quite long, but we will meet in part 6 and then we test it and fix any problem that comes up.